Hello, all of you risk takers and truth seekers to podcast live the battlefield. Today I want to talk to you about revolution. I want to teach you how revolutions start. And I have the full credibility, authority to speak about this because I grew up in communism and then I somehow joined to the radical right and I fought for democracy and somehow I saw what revolution looks like from point of view of 18 years old boy and today. And the one thing no government can stop, that is communication. I'm seeing how many of my friends on the West complaining about safety online, e-safety, the misinformation, disinformation. I'd like to teach you today something very powerful lesson. How communication actually it's that one idea of everything, it's the spark of everything around us. Idea in our head makes the fire, did make the fire, made the wheel, made the guns, made the rockets, planes, everything else. And people communicated 100 years ago without internet. And yet we had one example 14 years ago. This year is going to be 14 years. How the whisper burned entire region and brought revolution on the doorstep. So today we're going to talk about power of communication and how whispers inspired revolution through the centuries. Needless to say, I want to use examples from my life because I fought the war and I was a part of revolution big time. Now, the question it is for all of you. Do you know how revolution around the world starts? Well, I grew up in a world where the communication was predicated on be careful what you say because you don't know who is listening. But those who were listening to what regular people said understood that the greatest thing they could do was to let people speak, not stop them. That is the communism. I want to teach you the lesson. In communism, society was speaking, was whispering. And that was biggest concern for the government, for the law enforcement departments, secret police. So they say, let people speak. Don't stop them. That is why the communism stayed for so long. In this method, you may follow so-called breadcrumbs that lead to arrest and torture of opposition leaders and rebel commanders. That's how it was done. That was done during the communism. But we are now seeing acceleration and increased dynamism in human communication, which appears to have fundamentally changed over the last several decades. No question asked. When I came in Australia in 98, I lied to you now. I apologize, 98 in November. Very first time I heard the sound of the dial-up internet. Beep, 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 beep. I was like, my God, what is this? How these things works? I still don't understand how the TV works, but we have an internet. But that thing changed communication fundamentally. And, last couple decades we've seen that this is evolving on daily basis. Not only is connection faster, but the number of links linking us into the chaos of modern communication has expanded and has the depth of the ties. However, the most significant element is the power that the modern communication affords us. With the advent of the internet, it became evident that almost no part of the world would ever be forgotten again. Do you agree? So we are communicating daily, any part of the world, any given time. Now we began to blend more and more of this virtual world into our real life. It's a sad thing, but it's happening. The introduction of social networks transformed the internet into a platform where people could express their thoughts, jobs, and social activities. Wrong. It was the only matter of time before social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter then evolved into fully fledged modern agoras, at which point politicians through the world become quite concerned about the comments that flow through these virtual spaces. Do you agree with that one? We can see this today, that people are political politicians. If it doesn't work for them, it's a threat, it's misinformation. Look, I've been in school, I've done the work in environment of human intelligence, so I've been very familiar very early in my working age. What is misinformation? What's disinformation? But I make a separate episode about this one. However, that being said, we can see today that people are, if they're positive opinion is not expressed on social media, it's labeled misinformation. And then the leaders and politicians who should be afraid of the people, because if we go back into the Greek times, or when the democracy started, and the senates, everything else, politicians has been chosen by people, for the people, from the people, for the people. But politicians, evolve as well. They love social media and they love the positive comments. And that what brings us today to that revolution. And this is I want to talk about Arab Spring. And now how widely employed social media was controlled by the government. Arab Spring was the biggest social media experiment. Eventually, the internet was shut down and, revolution began to build. But you may be wondering why. So the Arab Spring is a catalyst for change. The Arab Spring, it was a revolutionary wave of rallies, protests, and civil wars erupted in late 2010. Maybe you don't remember, but this series of events transformed the political landscape of North Africa and the Middle East. The Arab Spring began in Tunisia, prompted by the self-immolation of, I will probably make a mistake with surname, Mohamed Bouazizi, a street seller, protesting police corruption and mistreatment. Obviously, police was thinking we can do forever. Bouazizi's desperate act sparked the Tunisian revolution, prompting subsequent revolution in Egypt, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and elsewhere. So entire region was being brought to the knees. These moments shared a unifying desire for more social fairness, economic opportunity, and political freedom, which resonate strongly with the millions of people around that area. Now, when you ask yourself, how's now in those areas? Well, as you know, the Libya, Tunisia, Syria, Yemen, they're all in the war. Civil war or the war against everybody, anybody. So when the people think by revolution, they're going to start something, they're going to change and for the better, they were wildly mistaken, because it takes time to things evolve. Revolution, it's in a split second. Evolution takes the time. But let's go back to Arab Spring. The Arab Spring arose from the widespread dissatisfaction. With what? With autocratic administration, which was worsened by high unemployment, economic inequality, and the lack of political freedom. That was everybody's biggest concern, political freedom. So, social media played a critical role in organizing, disseminating, and amplifying demonstrator voices, defeating governmental media control efforts. Now, let's go back 80 years back in time. And for those who don't know, the Charles de Gaulle come to the Winston Churchill, and that's a guy who's general from France. They escaped in England during the beginning of the Second World War, and comes to the Churchill, says, listen, I need 5 minutes on the radio. And Churchill says, okay, here we go, I give it to you. 5 minutes, enjoy your 5 minutes on the radio. Well, those 5 minutes actually grow every day. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, till eventually Charles de Gaulle and his little government in exile in England didn't got the opportunity to daily demonstrate their voice. What that means? They will daily passing the message via radio to the friends, to people rebel, to people fight, to people, do everything to take the Germans and the Wehrmacht out of the France. Took it 5 years actually, but it worked because people are being continuously informed. That was a radio. So you need to turn on the radio on daily basis to listen what the guy says in England on French to the French people. And same time, enemy listens this as well. So enemy is listening and say okay, they say these things, you're going to do this. But took it 5 years for Charles de Gaulle to come in Paris in August 1944 and liberate from the Germans. Now, Arab Spring produced a wide range of consequences, from the removal of the long-standing governments in Egypt and Libya to destructive civil conflicts in today Syria and Yemen. People forgetting these things. The revolution started, the long-standing government was being expelled, and we have now the civil wars. The Arab Spring legacy continues to have an impact on global politics, demonstrating the force and unpredictable nature of citizen-led movements for change. Yeah, who organized them? The question is, has the moment arrived. The Western world views the various revolutions that occurred or are presently taking place under the auspice of the Arab Spring, in the forms of riots and rallies against ruling governments, as a success for social networks. Because of these authorities' tight control over the main media and conflict zones, social networks are increasingly being used to transmit information, which, due to the freedom of communication and lack of censorship, truly position them as a suitable location for the spread of revolutionary messages. However, the issue remains: is the Arab Twitter, because start of Twitter, Spring simply a reflection of the Western world perspective of social networks, or is their influence truly significant? And if you watch the movie called The 13 Hours, you will see how the people in US use social media to pinpoint when the next attack on account on American embassy via Twitter. We talk about Arab Spring, and this is the case. Entire place took it on December 17, 2010. Now you ask yourself, why December 17 it's called Arab Spring Uprising? Because what they try to relate it to Czechoslovakian Spring Uprising during the Cold War. So, that was something similar when the people burned themselves in Czechoslovakia, and it didn't work. It was a very bloody, a very powerful onslaught by the Soviet armed forces, Russian forces, call them today, but then the Soviet forces against rebels. But on December 17, 2010, in the streets of Sidi Bouzid, Tunisia, it was happened, the widely recognized as the start of the Arab Spring, a subsequent revolution in other Arab states. Now you ask yourself, how that is possible? We have the social media, right? Which is passing messages happening. So, starting in Tunisia, Mohamed Bouazizi was a grocer who set himself on fire in protest when officials prevented him from selling unconfiscated fruits and vegetables. Well, he died shortly after. Of course he died. He burned himself. That's a sign of desperation. Following that, hundreds of demonstrators flocked to the streets, and one of the first photographs posted on Facebook of protesters and police outside the government building will serve as a proof of social media critical role in public life. So social media can play the role to calm people. We saw in 2020, 2021 how some things was being served to people on social media as a good, as a great. You must have them because otherwise you're gonna disappear into the thin air. But as well, the social media hides a lot of things. I wrote a book about slangs, and social media is full of the hidden messages there. There's a lot of accounts there who are just appear for the purpose to pass one message and then delete. There's a lot of slang there. There's a lot of codes there. But one thing, when you want to see something visible, that's to spread information. A revolution in Tunisia just set ablaze entire Middle East. As a result of that image, the first news to spread globally via social media was viewed as a precursor to the wave of protest. Until the beginning of, so it's happened in December, but beginning of 2011, when Tunisia's long-time president Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali was forced to step down, the streets of Tunisia were filled with the violent protests. So nobody was safe. Every day there was alarming stories about clashes between demonstrators and police forces in the global media, which also served as an information source on social networks. And you know how the media translate something, what they see, what's happening, 100 times fold. Tunisian position is unique in the Arab world, if only because the ruling dictatorship was deposed relatively fast, and the reforms and political opportunities obtained in a year. They presented Tunisia in a new light. So it was a role model. Tunisia is unique in that images, comments, opinions, recordings from the streets have spread through the world due to not only traditional media, but also social networks and their users. So Tunisia, well done. In 1 year, they evolved. However, we come to the Egypt. The Egypt story differed in several respects. What was comparable were Hosni Mubarak autocratic rule and the wave of protests that began in the same way following Tunisian lead when Egyptian set himself on fire in Cairo to protest the country's dismal social economic conditions. A few days later, the streets were filled with protesters. So they realized that somebody set himself on fire will start revolution. Well, protests in Cairo and other cities lasted 18 days. Social media users uploaded images, videos, and notes about the incident, sparking additional protests. Egyptians were outraged in 2010 due to continued security concerns, a worsening economy, poverty, and high unemployment. That being said, in Egypt, young people formed Facebook groups to encourage Egyptians to march to abolish corruption, revise the constitution, and generate new jobs. So they used the Facebook, not Twitter. Egyptian and Tunisian protesters used social media to increase the revolution's activity and reach. Now, that being said, most of citizens obtain information from social media. And as I said to you before, that case, Charles de Gaulle come to the Winston Churchill, says, I wanted 5 minutes on radio. It's a long story short. He got 5 minutes one day, then got more time. But as was Charles de Gaulle transmitting via radio waves in France what people to do, how to fight the Germans, and he was listening. Same goes for social media. However, that was a one-way street. Charles de Gaulle talks to the people. Nobody interfere. Nobody can put the comments. Nobody can add nothing. So you are believing what has been said. In social media world, it's different. There's a lot of information goes out. Government listening and observing. They try to utilize every tool available on their disposal to countermine the protesters. But there is as well the third party or fourth party or fifth party who puts more fuel on a fire on those social media. That's what you need to understand. The social media is not one-way street. It is the many streets, many intersections, and sometimes it's a roundabout. Now, one activist in Cairo stated, we use Facebook to schedule protests, Twitter to coordinate, and YouTube to inform the world. So 3 platforms. Egypt's highest administrative body has ordered what? Suspension of the internet and mobile services in some parts of the country. It's worth noting, however, that the blockage of modern channels of communication prompted even more resistance. As people turned to what? Now we're going to talk about how revolution starts. Door-to-door campaign to rally as much support as possible for the protests. In addition to Tunisia and Egypt, several more nations have felt the effect of the Arab Spring on state stability. Libya and Yemen have little internet penetration and control, so social media impact on protests is limited. A huge wave of protest and discontent swept over Bahrain, Algeria, and Morocco. Protests began in Syria mid-March 2011, with some of the first social media reports showing conflict between the police and protesters in Damascus. The entire region was destabilized. What should be remembered in the future is that regimes, nations whose governments were deposed, using social media unprepared for such events. They are unprepared. In countries where the internet was not a key source of information, it swiftly became a viable weapon. The premise is that the leaders acknowledge social media ability to impact public opinion. Of course we do. Like, when you are in the morning, wake up, what we do? We straight away grab our mobile phones, our tablets, we're watching TV. Social media is all around us. Journalists are doing their job. They're doing the best possible to read the news. They have no opinions. Of course they do. Sometimes the media adding the more fuel on the fire when it's not necessary, because as we're sitting in our nice comfy homes, somebody somewhere around the world is watching the social media in their backyard is revolution. They're believing everything's true. It's not true. You must understand one thing. When I was in 1990 joined to the first party back my home, it was very brutal. The government was using every trick in their sleeves to crush that uprising. But slowly, we get the guns, the grenades, and the fight started following year, everything else. But I do remember when I was watching TV, particularly the CNN, correct CNN, And the CNN was lying, 70% of what they put on TV was a lie, because I knew it, because I was living in a city which was being shelled daily, day and night. Particularly days there was no shelling, nothing else, but they're putting on TV how hundreds of people are dead. And then I think myself like, well, I was 18 years old when I went in the war, but the media was ready on the side of who knows who and for what, I don't know. They're selling more advertising. Who cares? But government, it loves social media to pass message what to do daily, you and I. Social media works very well with the governments, but as well, the people are using social media to start revolutions. That is the case on Arab Spring uprising. So government tried to shut down the social media. So what people opting as in communism, they were whispering. They're going to church or they're in a mosque. They're whispering on the markets, they're whispering at home. And it's faster than the social media. And you can't control people whispering. As a social network expand, we will see the effects on the people and society as a whole. There's no question we can ask if, but it's going to be when. Social media was created unstoppable momentum of the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring represented a watershed moment in the use of technology for political activity. Initially, it was fueled by social media platforms. The protests revealed the potent role that digital tools could play in confronting entrenched authoritarian regimes to the Arab East. It done the job. However, social media sites as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube played important role in early stages of the Arab Spring. They enabled demonstrators to organize demonstrations, share information about government abuses, and broadcast images and stories that major media sources either ignored or banned. These internet tools had significant influence. Why? Because they allow faster and larger scale protest coordination than was previously feasible. However, when the protests gained traction, many governments attempted to quell them by cutting off internet access and censoring social media websites. As I saw during the 2020-2021, the law enforcement agencies, they used the social media to track people, to follow the people, everything else. And I would say like at least 70% of people on social media who would try to organize some type of protests or gatherings, they were trolls. I knew straight away, it's like, these people are not real. They try to get attraction, so everybody comes to social media, put the comments and anything else, so police can see it and say, those are people who coming and saying that we need a protest because one person organized it. That is okay when you have a controlled environment. Middle East is not controlled environment. You cannot do this. So you can't employ the government, law enforcement agency, intelligence agencies to spend 24/7 on internet following all these things. You can shut down the internet. Egypt, notably, they cut down internet connectivity for many days in attempt to quash the rebellion. And despite these restrictions, the revolutions continue to spread, exhibiting a resilience that extended beyond digital communication. This perseverance was fueled by a deep yearning for change. People want to change. When internet communication was cut, and it was cut, people relied on more conventional techniques of organizing and disseminating information, such as a word of mouth, graffiti, and flyers, and that's happened through the centuries. Neighbors formed local committees to protect neighborhoods and coordinate protests, demonstrating that while media had little the spark, the fire. Media lit the spark, no question asked. The fire revolution had grown into inferno that no government crackdown could extinguish. Now, the impact of social media on Arab Spring continues to influence global movements, imparting crucial lessons about the strength of connected citizens versus authoritarian regimes. Now, I want to end up this episode with something what I was witnessing. When the people organize, they organize. When the people start doing things, they're doing things very well. And there is you can't stop the uprising in any shape, size, or form, because it's always going to stay something that's called a whisper. And I saw this in the 1990, 1991. People were whispering behind closed doors, which eventually translated into the full military uprising, fighting for the freedom, for democracy, for the changes and everything else. Arab Spring uprising demonstrated that doesn't matter how social media influencing your daily life, my daily life, or whatever it is, it can lit a spark for anything and everything, good or bad. And that's what the lesson you need to learn, that the whisper and communication and word of mouth, flyers, graffiti, always gonna stay more stronger than the social media. Thank you for watching Live the Battlefield. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about Arab Spring uprising?